For a very long time, our gospel reading today has been known as one of the most complicated passages in Luke's gospel. There is a lot there that can be dissected and reflected upon. But let me make an attempt, at least, to simplify its message. First of all, the passage comes to us toward the end of Luke's gospel, just before he's about to be arrested and put to trial and death. And so this passage is meant to make a profound influence upon his disciples. First of all, Jesus makes it very clear that things are not going to be easy for his disciples. There's certainly a lot of doom and gloom in this passage. There's a great deal of fear as to the results of what might happen to someone who preaches the word of Jesus. And Jesus is saying this because he's well aware that even with all of his efforts, with his love, with his miracles, with his teaching, and the way in which he treated people, he was ignored, basically. There's a small percentage of people who decided to follow Jesus, who bought into his message and bought into this new life. Knowing very well, Jesus did, that the disciples were likely to find the very same results. He's preparing them for the very worst. Also in this passage, Jesus makes it quite clear that if one ignores Christ, if one ignores the teaching of Jesus, then there are likely to be consequences to that, directly or indirectly. And the consequences he lays out: the temple will be destroyed, Jerusalem will be in shambles, the people will be divided, and that there will be cosmic events. By the time Luke's readers read these passages, Jesus' predictions have all taken place. The temple was definitely destroyed. Jerusalem as a city was broken. There were all kinds, as there are in this day and age as well, natural disasters. And even the cosmic realm itself, Jesus says, will be disturbed. Jesus sees consequences to people who have no faith in him. He sees consequences when people do not pay attention to the way of life that Jesus has taught us. Those consequences are in the realms of faith, in the realms of communities, in the realms of personal relationships, in the realms of even the cosmic world. That when we do not pay attention to God's ways and to the way of Jesus, consequences inevitably happen. We might even say that in our own day and age, we see that ever so clearly, in an age in which people turn to the secular world and turn away from faith and religion and practicing moral and ethical values. When as people throughout the world move in that direction, the consequences are obvious. And so Jesus, not only does he warn his disciples of the challenge that they face, he helps them to recognize the consequences of not witnessing, of not proclaiming his message, regardless of the circumstances. And one final point about this complex reading. At the very end of the passage, Jesus makes it very clear that those who remain faithful to the faith, who live in the example of Jesus, who strive for goodness and integrity of life, when those people make that effort, Jesus says, not a hair on your head will be destroyed. He reminds them, by your perseverance, you will secure your lives. And so even in the midst of this doom and gloom, and even in the midst of the reality of Jesus' efforts to spread his teaching, even in the midst of all of that, Jesus reminds us, as he did his disciples, that remaining faithful will bring us true life and true integrity. It will bring us the joys of our human journeys. Jesus promises that in the end, he and those faithful to him will be victorious. May we be confident in such a promise, and may we strive to live in the great example of the Lord Jesus.